Hey, welcome back for our 10 a.m. session for Food Photography and Marketing 101. Today we've got Alli Mullikin with us today. She began shooting in college, shooting photos, I should say, in college, and she launched Alli Mullikin's Photography in 2015, and she started going full-time in 2017. Today she'll go over how to teach us how to take photos that are consistent with your brand, lighting, composition, editing basics, and how to create images that will sell your food and beverage. Also, remember to submit your questions in the app, and we will get to those at the end. So, take it away, Alli.
Okay, thank you so much, Mandy. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited that you guys are here today. We are just covering some very basic photography skills that you need just in order to sell your food, to take pictures that look artistic and inviting so that people want to click on whatever it is that they see and come and visit you, your store, go buy your products, like all that good stuff. So a lot of what I'm doing today is through a PowerPoint presentation. So I'm going to be switching back and forth, so just bear with me with that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we will get this show on the road. Okay, so let's get this started. Welcome to Exposing Food Photography by me, yours truly, Alli Mullikin. Okay, so here's how you can reach me, guys, if you have questions afterwards, or you just want to follow along and see what kind of stuff I produce. Please feel free to reach out. I love chatting with new people, meeting new people, so reach out to me. So here's a little overview of what we're covering today. If there's really just one thing I hope you guys take from this, it's simply to practice what you learned today. It's going to be really difficult to just immediately implement everything that we cover, so take everything that we're discussing and practice it, put it into use. And practice everything, not just the things that you think are going to look cool, because you never know, you might surprise yourself and decide that you like something better. So let's move on here. Here are some common mistakes that I see on social media or advertising in general. Mostly it's on social media. So the number one biggest no-no that I see is the pictures simply are not bright enough. They are just too dark, they're too gloomy, and they're not inviting. We're going to cover more of that and how to avoid that. The pictures are cropped too small, or they're just way too far away and I can't even tell what I'm looking at. The next thing is that the angle just isn't flattering. So if you're taking a picture of a burger, I want to see it from the side. I want to see all the juicy layers. I don't want to see it from the top. If you're looking at it from the top, all you can see is the patty or the lettuce or whatever's on top, okay? So pay attention to your angle. Incorrect white balance. So I know you guys probably don't know what that means. Essentially, it's just the color of the image. So we want the white parts of your image to appear white and not some other color. Another thing I see is dirty surroundings, just kind of being lazy, especially if you're you have a restaurant, you're in the back of your kitchen, and you're just taking a picture of the food that's going out. Move the stuff out of the background. Get rid of the rags, get rid of the utensils, and pay attention to your surroundings. Cell phone flash. Please, for the love of God, stop using your cell phone flash. I have never seen a photo where I thought, man, that cell phone flash looks so good. Stop using it. We are going to find ways to avoid needing to use the cell phone flash. And really, it's just about not being lazy. Move your food to where the light is, to where it looks good, okay? Next thing is filters. More specifically, the filters on Instagram. Most of those aren't appropriate for food specifically. So I'm going to show you guys some ways that you can still have an edgy kind of look without dulling the image. So the last thing is a vignette. A vignette is when you see the edges of the image are dark. So it's kind of a dated thing. We don't really use this anymore. And once again, we want to avoid our pictures being dark, so a vignette really just isn't appropriate. So let's learn how to correct these mistakes. We are going to start by learning about light. So exposure, here's a key word for you guys. It is the quantity of light entering the camera. It can also be referred to as the brightness of an image. So as you can see at the top, a bright image starts to lose sharpness and visibility of the details, and the presence of the shadows kind of start to fade. And the highlights are the brightest part of your image. So the highlights start to become incredibly distracting. They're just way too bright, okay? So the image below is too dark. It looks better than the one above, but here's the thing. This looks kind of gloomy. It looks kind of sad. So you can still see the visibility of the details of the food, but it's really important with food to have a perfect exposure, because what happens to food when it starts to go bad? It will turn gray. Any kind of meat that you have, it turns from pink to gray. So you want your images to be bright and inviting. I would rather you guys have images that are too bright than images that are too dark, because you want your food to look good, okay? So we are going to learn how to see light. What do I mean by that? So I want you guys to learn how to identify the source of your light, the location of the light, so where's it coming from, the color of the light or the white balance, and the intensity of the light. So how do you locate your light? Let's start with that. You'll notice in this person's eye right here, you can see that the light is clearly coming from the right side. And you can actually tell that it's a window. So we know exactly where the light is coming from if you locate the highlights. It's the brightest part of your image. Now, if you're struggling to find highlights in your image when you take it, this is a very cool trick that I learned. You're going to take a black Christmas bulb, hold it directly in front of your subject, and take a picture, and then you will immediately be able to see where the light is coming from. So you'll notice on this Christmas bulb, the light is coming from the left and the right. So I'll show you an example of a picture that is difficult to locate the highlights. So look at this picture here. You don't see any really bright highlights, and you also really can't find any shadows. There's a really tiny shadow there, but it's very hard to tell what direction the light is actually coming from. So what do you start with? Look around, check your surroundings. Are there windows near you? Is there a light above you? Is there a light coming from behind you? If you really can't figure it out, do the Christmas bulb test. You're going to put the Christmas bulb exactly where the drink is, take a picture, and then look at where the highlights are, and the highlights are going to tell you where the light is coming from. It is important to know where the light is coming from. That way you can control it. If your image is too bright or too dark and you can't locate your light sources, you don't have the ability to control the brightness of your image. So another mistake that I see, it is the white balance, or the color of the light in your image. So this gets a little confusing. I'm going to show you guys how to actually fix this when you're editing later on. But you'll notice the image at the top is too orange, and the image at the top is a little bit too blue. So the biggest mistake that I see is, especially if you're in a restaurant or in your home, and you're using this very orange light to light up your food, and it just really doesn't look correct. It's not accurate. So I'm going to show you guys later how we fix the white balance. Here's an example of what it should look like. So in this image, the white little napkin there actually appears white to the viewer, and that is what we are aiming for. Okay, so let's learn the difference between soft light and hard light. So soft light is an example of the image above, and hard light is below. So the image above, soft light, it produces a very subtle transition between the highlights and the shadows in your image. It's just very soft overall. You're going to notice the image at the bottom has this very bold and dark shadow, as well as the highlights. The highlights are also very bold. So there's a reason they call this hard and soft light. Even if you just look at the images, the one above looks very soft, and the one below looks pretty hard. It's very defined. So it's important to know the difference between the two of these so that you can decide what you want to use. I find that pictures of products of food, specifically drinks, really, it's very popular to use hard light right now. It's an edgier look. It's more modern. It's very crisp. It's very sharp. So when you're setting up your shoot, consider soft light or hard light. Try taking pictures of both and see what you like. In order to create soft light, what you want to do is bounce light or reflect light. So for example, window light is an example of soft light because the sun is being bounced off of the ground and into your house or your restaurant. And hard light, all you have to do is point your light source directly at your subject, or take it outside when the sun is directly overhead. So let's talk more about light. Start with window light. This is the easiest thing to use, especially if you're starting in the middle of the day, because the light is going to kind of stay the same. So if you're taking pictures with a camera, especially, start with window light. It's really going to help you out. So move the table or whatever surface you have close to the window. If it's cloudy outside and you're noticing your images aren't bright enough, wait for it to be sunny and then try it again. So here's what I want you guys to practice. Practice with front lit, side lit, and back lit. So from the front, here's what's happening. Front lit images look a little bit more two-dimensional. So with photography in general, you're taking three-dimensional life and you're making it two-dimensional or even one-dimensional. So when you're lighting from the front, it starts to look two-dimensional because of the absence of shadows. If you side lit your subject, it looks more three-dimensional because now there's kind of this presence of shadows wrapping around the back of the eggs there, and there's more dimension to it. From the back, it's still three-dimensional because now you have this sort of halo of light wrapping around the egg, and so you have the front amount of light and then the shadow and then the backlit. So you do need to be careful if you're shooting from this angle, but backlit photos look amazing for food, and so does side lit. Honestly, all three of these look amazing. You just kind of have to play with it and decide what you like, but it's important to know the difference. That way you can decide what you like. So let's say you don't have enough window light coming in and you need to use some continuous lights, artificial light, okay? So these are some examples of what you can buy. You can get some of these between $30 and $100. They're very convenient, and what's great about this, especially if you have a backdrop set up, you do not have to move yourself and your subject if you're trying to do front lit, side lit, and backlit. All you have to do is move the light itself. Makes it a lot easier, especially if you have a very elaborate setup and you're just kind of trying to get this done quickly. So definitely consider artificial lights. I use them all the time, and I honestly love the look of them. Okay, so now we're going to move into the elements of composition. So you guys don't have to have every single one of these elements in your picture to have a beautiful image, but you do need to consider them. You need to know about them. All photographers know about the elements of composition, and so does every single artist in the world. When you're learning how to implement these elements, it is important to just do it one at a time. So practice each of these one at a time. That way you can distinguish between them and remember them when you're taking pictures of your food. So I'm only going to cover a couple of these today, and these are the ones I think that are actually most important. So the first one, the element of composition, is the rule of thirds. This is the golden rule. This is the holy rule. So it's just a guideline. You don't have to use this. However, what this rule states is that if you align your subject, which is this bag of coffee right here, with one of the 4 intersecting points of the grid, it's going to create a more dynamic image. So I've aligned, I haven't quite aligned it to the middle of this point right here, but here's what happens. This allows your eye to travel from point to point rather than staying stagnant in the center of the image. It's okay if you center your subject in the middle of your photo. But this is just something that is suggested to just create a more dynamic image. It creates movement and flow throughout the image. So another way you can break this rule is to actually center your subject within any of these cubes. So you can put it here, you can put it here, you can put it here or here. I don't recommend doing that for food, simply because you want to show as much of the food as possible, but it is an idea that you guys can try out. So the rule of thirds refers more to the placement of your subject, but framing an image is going to allow your eye to move in a pattern according to the placement of elements surrounding the image. So I have blueberries here, and they're just sort of circling this scone, and your eyes have the ability to just kind of move through the image. So I believe that circular image or circular movement works best for food photography, because food is often served on a circular plate or even in a circular fashion. You just see circles in food everywhere. So I always love to just create circles. You can create lines, you can create whatever shape you want to create, but just keep that in mind. You want to frame your image, you want to frame your subject, right, with your surrounding elements. All right, composition. So we talked about this earlier. Sorry, angle. Angle, we talked about this earlier. It's the angle at which you take your food can directly affect how appetizing it actually looks. So, like I said before with the burger, you want to take it from the side of the image. If you're taking it from over top, you're just seeing the burger or the lettuce or whatever's there. So here's an example with these cookies. I noticed that the cookies are the same color as this cutting board. I wanted to separate the cookies from the background, so that's why I move my angle. I kind of go down a little bit with my camera, and now the view goes directly towards the inside of the cookie because I have separated it from the surface that it's on. So experiment with all the different types of angles. Here's another example. It's kind of cool to see like all this bacon spilling out from the top on the edges there. But when you move your angle, shift your angle to the image on the right here, now I can see more of the bacon. I can see cheese, which I couldn't actually see before. I can see how thick that egg is, and then I can see the bottom little bun there. Like, look at how thick this guy is. We want to show him off, right? Show off the thick guy. Okay. Next thing here. I know I'm moving kind of quick, guys, so let me know if you have questions at the end here. Texture. Remember I said that photography makes three-dimensional life sometimes look one-dimensional. So when you add texture to a photo, it gives it more depth and detail, and honestly, it can make your food look more real. So this Frappuccino by itself would look a little two-dimensional if it were not for the Oreos, the crumbs, the whipped cream, and just things adding to the texture of this image. So for example, let's say you're taking a picture of a bowl of soup. Soup on its own is just going to be flat and smooth, and there's no dimension to it. I can't tell how deep the bowl is. It's just this vast, empty nothingness. I have no idea really what's going on. So what you want to do to add some texture to it is add parsley, croutons, cheese, avocado, rosemary, whatever I can put on top to just make the image more interesting, especially if you have food that is just very flat. You need to add something to it to make it more appealing. Okay, depth of field. Guys, this is the hardest one to understand. If you look this up and Google it and watch hours and hours of YouTube videos, you're going to be confused. So I've just shortened this for you guys. Here's all you really need to know. The depth of field is the distance between your closest subject, which is in focus, and the background. So the depth of field that you see on the image on the right is very hard to achieve with a camera phone alone. It's a lot easier to do that with a camera. And so here's what I want you guys to actually just memorize and write down and remember. A shallow depth of field creates a blurry background, and a deep depth of field creates a sharp background. So your phone can kind of do something that's in between these two images, but it's very difficult to get that like exact precise control. So you'll notice at the top, not only is the background blurry, but the surrounding eggs are also blurry. And it just creates this soft, ethereal, beautiful image. But I personally believe that food especially should be very, very sharp. So I always prefer the image at the bottom. You can see all the little details. Now imagine if this was just a whole spread of food, and now you can see all the details, everything in the background. Not only can you see the eggs in the back, you can see the table in the background. So this is an element that you guys might want to consider actually buying a semi-professional camera. That way you have control over this. To me, this is one of the biggest things that distinguish a professional photographer is their ability to control the depth of field and in appropriate scenarios. So for food, I always believe it should be sharper because we want to show off our food, right? We don't want to blur it out. Okay, I now have the video for you guys, so I'm going to move around some stuff here. Okay. So we're going to show you guys how to edit, and I'm doing this in an app called Snapseed. So stick around. I figured you guys would more likely be using Snapseed. So let's watch.
Okay, guys. Let's learn how to edit. So this is an app called Snapseed. When you open up a picture, this is what it looks like. Here's your menu. So if you click on looks, you're going to get something similar to Instagram. You have pre-made little like filters that you can use. So I like the way Pop looks, but I don't think I would use the rest of these. But this is besides the point. We are going to edit our own picture today. So if you click in the middle on Tools, in the top left is where you're going to spend the most time on Tune Image. So you're going to click that. And so if you look at the bottom left here, I'm going to click on the slider bar. Here is where we can adjust everything that you'll typically want to adjust on food pictures specifically. So I always prefer to start with
Hey, Allie, can you pause for just a minute?
Highlights.
Yeah, what's going on, guys?
Try resharing the window that the video is in. I think we're not seeing your full desktop. We're just seeing the PowerPoint window.
Okay, so you guys, can you see it now?
Not yet. We're still seeing the PowerPoint.
It's really strange. Give us 1 second here, guys.
Thank you all for hanging in with us. Try to stop your screen share.
Okay.
And then see if you can restart it, but click on the video instead.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys. Let's try this again. How's this looking?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to try this one more time.
Okay, guys. Let's learn how to edit. So this is an app called Snapseed. When you open up a picture, this is what it looks like. Here's your menu. So if you click on looks, you're going to get something similar to Instagram where you have pre-made little like filters that you can use. So I like the way pop looks, but I don't think I would use the rest of these. But this is besides the point. We are going to edit our own picture today. So if you click in the middle on tools, in the top left is where you're going to spend the most time on tune image. So you're going to click that. And so if you look at the bottom left here, I'm going to click on the slider bar. Here is where we can adjust everything that you'll typically want to adjust on food pictures specifically. So I always prefer to start with highlights and shadows. Highlights generally are going to be a little too bright if you're outside, but if you're inside, sometimes they're actually a little dark. So in this example, I might increase them just a little bit, but you'll notice if I go down, how much darker the brightest part of the image is. And then if I bring it up, the brightest part of the image gets brighter. So I'm going to increase it just like a tiny, tiny bit. Then I like to adjust shadows. So typically with food, I like to increase shadows. Normally with portraits of people, I will decrease them. But like we said before, we want food to be bright and inviting. So I'm going to bump that up just a little bit. And then I like to increase the brightness overall. So the brightness of an image, when you increase it, it increases all over the place, okay? If I decrease it, it decreases it all over the place, not just the shadows and the highlights, but the entire image. So I'm only gonna bump that up just a little bit because I liked how bright it was initially. So the contrast is the difference between the darkest part and the brightest part of the image, but also the color. So if I increase it all the way, it just starts looking really fake and weird, and we never want to do that. So I'm going to show you what it looks like if it goes all the way down. So if it goes all the way down, it starts to look very, very flat, and we never want our food to look flat. So we're going to increase it just a tiny bit. Less is more. Remember, contrast, less is more. Saturation. Saturation is just increasing the color, essentially. So if you go all the way up, oh my gosh, it looks horrible. Never do this. If you go all the way down, you lose all of your color. So always bump it up just a tiny bit. Less is more, remember? So saturation, contrast, less is more. So I'm going to go to white balance now. I'm not going to adjust ambience and worth here because I want you guys to see what the white balance looks like. So I'm going to click the check mark because I want to keep my edits. I'm going to go back to tools, top right, white balance. You can adjust the temperature and the tint. Now that sounds confusing, temperature. If you increase, it gets warmer. If you decrease, it gets cooler. Warm means orange, cool means blue. So this doesn't need much adjustment here, and I'm actually going to go ahead and just click auto white balance and see what it gives me. I always suggest you guys try it, but if it looks unnatural, adjust it yourself. So it only adjusted it by doing +2, so it's the tiniest bit warm. So I'm going to keep that because I like that adjustment. I'm going to go to tint now, and it looks like they did -3. So let me show you what tint looks like very quickly. If you increase it, it gets more magenta. Decrease, it gets more green. So with tint, they had it at -3. Just a tiny slight adjustment here because the white balance was pretty spot on. I like the auto white balance, so I'm going to keep that. So I'm going to click the check mark in the bottom right. The next tool I want to show you guys is details. Click on details. You always want to sharpen your food images. Always, always, always sharpen. So if you come up all the way, eventually this will start looking a little fake, and I know you probably can't see it as well, but especially if you import this picture into Facebook, Facebook has a hard time showing sharp images, so be careful when you're sharpening. Kind of stay in like the 30 range. That's usually about where I stay. Same thing with structure. Less is more with structure because structure just takes it to like a whole other level. It will decrease your detail like crazy or increase your detail like crazy. So I'm going to keep it maybe about right here. I like how that looks. So we're going to go with that. So I'm going to click my little check mark here at the bottom. There's not much more that I want to do to this. You guys are going to notice there's the cropping tool and a bunch of other stuff I want y'all to come in here and play with later on, but keep it simple with your food photo edits. Less is always more. Really, all you want to do is show off what's already there. We want to enhance the color and sharpen it. Now, the thing I love about this app is you can look at your before and after. Very top, the third option over there, or the first, I should say, click that, click View Edits. You can look at everything that you've done so far, starting with the original. So we have the original. We decided we were going to tune the image, adjust the white balance, and then the details. So if you want to see the before and after, switch back and forth between details and original. So original, details, original, post edit. Look at the difference here. So on the original, it's just a little flat. The colors aren't as bright as they could be. It's not as sharp as it could be. Whenever you go to details, there's just this instant pop. It's more inviting, it's more colorful, and honestly, when we see desserts, we really want to see that color, the texture. We want it to look bigger than it really is. And this is a great edit here. This is typically how I edit food, and I encourage you guys to do the same.
Okay. So I'm realizing that the video wasn't actually working towards the end, but you guys got the gist of that. So I'm going to go back into the PowerPoint here. Here we go. Okay. Editing basics done. All right. Let's learn how to take some photos consistent with our brand. You guys have probably heard these 3 words before. You've probably spent some time on it, but if you're like my friend Jill here, you might not have had time to work on it, and you really don't have a solid definition of your brand just yet. So what you want to do is just start with what you know. So we're going to focus a little bit on 2 Scoops of Sugar Bakery. So Jill and Joan are the owners. It's in Washington Courthouse, Ohio. And they had a few questions that they were able to answer when we started their branding and food photo shoot. So one thing I asked was, what do you want to communicate with your audience? Obviously, everyone just wants to communicate that, you want them to buy their food. But 2 Scoops of Sugar is a place where families can gather, is essentially what the girls told me. So that means that they are more than just the food that they sell. So look at the people who love 2 Scoops of Sugar. These 2 people right here came in for the photo shoot. We had a great time. So what do you want people to do, think, and say when they see your food? Obviously, you want them to buy it. So the girls told me they want to push their signature frappuccinos. So we created a setting that would be exciting, appetizing, and just make the viewer want to buy a drink and go and click all over their Instagram page. So we needed something that was going to catch their attention right away. I'm going to show you guys some examples here in a little bit. Another question, what makes your food different? For the girls, they are using their grandma's recipes. There is just something completely nostalgic about knowing that this is grandma's recipe, even if it's not your grandma. So it's totally fine if all you can think of is that your food is made with love, but you really just have to own it. We all know that the quality of ingredients that you use can only go so high. There's probably competition in your field, so it's important to define why you're different, even if it really only has to do with your story. But we do need to learn how to communicate your story through images. So once you have at least a small definition of your brand, you want to imagine your brand. So choose some colors, patterns, textures, different types of background that are going to be appropriate for what you sell. If you're unsure, you're just going to want to look at what other people are doing. You can also focus on what they're doing incorrectly. If you see somebody and their images just aren't working for them, they're not getting engagement, look at what they're doing wrong. So these eggs, for example, look horrible in the setting. It just does not work, especially if you're trying to sell like cage-free eggs. This is not the image that you want to see. So here is really what you want to see. Basically what you guys, like the golden rule of what to avoid here is to put unfamiliar items in unfamiliar backgrounds. For example, let's say you sell ceviche. That's your thing. It's ceviche. It's fresh, made to order, right? That's not a food that's incredibly well known to all of America, especially Middle America. And so you wouldn't want to advertise this in like a forest with pine trees, right? Because this isn't a dish that is served at a Tennessee log cabin lodge. It's not where you go to get ceviche. So you need to have your food in appropriate environments. Another example is something like hummus. It can be mistaken for a different type of food. You might think it's cheese dip or something else. So it's important to have something in the picture that tells you that it's hummus. You need to have chickpeas or something you typically eat with hummus, like carrots and celery and things like that. So in order to create images that will sell your food, you need to know your audience, right? So we're going to focus on America specifically. Americans love large portions, messy, overflowing, and just perfect looking shots. So I've noticed that young audiences especially love messy and overflowing, whereas older audiences tend to like that symmetry, perfection, just things looking beautiful and in the right places. And then trends, cutting boards are really in right now. This blue background, bright backgrounds, marble and granite countertops, and things that have texture. Action shots, so like a drink flying through the air, which I don't expect you guys to do, but just so that you have an idea of what I'm talking about here. This has to be distinguishable and familiar to Americans, and people need to know what they're looking at. Quick example here, I just recently watched a YouTube video of Pakistani farmers trying food from around the world. They tried Subway. They thought it was ridiculous. Every part of it they thought was ridiculous. They thought it was crazy that you just pick up this massive thing and take a bite out of it, because that's not how they eat. And then they thought that the portion was massive. They said they could never possibly finish it. Most of them ended up just not liking it in general, but that's besides the point. You have to know your audience and know what people generally like. So we're going to talk about 2 scoops of sugar. So creating images that sell your food also involve telling your story. So Joan and Jill are sisters. They're all about family. They also have another sister. All 3 of the sisters have kids. They all have kids. And so we're going to talk about how some of these images translate to the questions that they were able to answer. The girls told me they wanted their pictures to have like a hometown feel, but nothing about this bakery says hometown feel to me. So for me, when I was interpreting this, I wanted the images to sort of match their bakery. So the hometown feel in this image is just the simplicity of the ingredients and the fact that it's homemade. You'll notice the ice cream scoop in the background. That's what we use to scoop out the cookies. Like, those are some big old cookies, and I want to eat one right now. We want to stay consistent with their brand strategy and target audience. We have some teenage girls that came in, and we're pushing the Frappuccinos. They're having a great time here, and you can take pictures of your food while still including people, especially the people that love your food specifically. Another example, tell your story with more than just food. Show the people that love your food, and then include the food in there, right? Family is everything to the girls. This is their veteran pawpaw. He comes in and works half a day. He was on my case all day, so he really didn't like that I was taking his picture here, but we want to show off that they have a veteran pawpaw that works there. This is a place where family means everything. Here we have the girls making the food. It doesn't have to just be your food. Show the process. Show where the love is entering your food. This is a place for families of all sizes, right? So this is actually their nieces. The girls told me that they are like family to their regulars. And so this is something that we want to show, not just with the food, but with the people. And then when you're taking pictures of just food, very stylized, like something like this, my idea was just to make it inviting, familiar, vibrant, and fun, because that's what I think of when I look at the store, when I look at the shop, and when I see the girls. They're just very inviting. It feels like family. It's something that I recognize, and it's really fun, and it's a place I want to take my family. All right. And then, like I said, we want to tell a story. So create a shot list. This is going to help you eliminate time spent on images that you're not going to use. In your shot list, describe the subject, the type of lighting being used, the location and background and other elements. If your menu changes, so should your pictures. The thing about Americans is that people want new, exciting, reinvented, familiar favorites. They want to see things that they know, but they want to see it with a twist. They want to see how portable your food is. They want to see how much fun they can have when they come into your restaurant. They want to see how they can put this on their Instagram and make it look super cool. They want an experience. So constantly document and show off your new creations and experiment with new ways of doing so. If you're finding that you're too busy to practice this and to do all this correctly, it's time to hire a professional. But keep these things in mind, especially if you just need a quick picture and you just need to throw it up on Instagram, on Facebook very quickly. Learn how to implement everything that we've offered today. So if you found that you need some extra help, I do offer coaching and education if you guys are interested here. So, okay, I think I'm back. Hi, hello. So, sorry we went through that so quickly, but I think I'm at the point where we're opening this up to questions. So I'm going to go look at the app here. So, I don't think I see any questions just yet.
Yeah.
But thank you guys so much for joining me.
I don't see any questions yet either.
Okay.
But one of the things that a lot of us in food right now are starting or are planning on are the holidays. What are some tricks or things to keep in mind for Thanksgiving and all the holidays in December?
Right. So I guess if your menu is changing, especially to show how you can use your food during the holidays, consider creating like a little set, a little backdrop. You'll notice some of the images you saw today had blue backdrops and pink backdrops. Those were just 60-cent poster boards that I bought from Walmart. So it wasn't a fancy backdrop whatsoever. And that's the great thing about food, is that it's kind of small, so you can have a small backdrop. It doesn't have to be massive. So buy some little backdrops for yourself, and then things that are appropriate for fall and for Thanksgiving and for Christmas. You don't have to go crazy with it. You can just have a tiny little pumpkin in your shot to indicate that this is pumpkin spice. Or you can have a little candy cane laying in the front to indicate that it's candy cane flavor. You can also find different locations. So if it's snowing outside, that is a great place to show off your wintry treats, right? Take it outside, get like some wood or some pine trees, something that just screams winter and Christmas. And don't be afraid to make it crazy though too. You know, you can keep it simple, make it crazy. Whatever your style is, whatever reflects your brand, if you tend to have more simple images, then, you know, just have something tiny in there. But just play around with different decorations, different types of things you can throw in there.
Great. No, I think this was all wonderful information. So thank you. I know I've been on the creative side for quite a while, but I still learned a few things. Always do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and the biggest thing is to just practice it. I know all this information is overwhelming, and I know it seems like, wow, this is just the basics. I can't imagine what goes beyond that. It really is just the basics. It truly is. Every photographer knows everything that we've covered today. So, like I said, break it down and practice each one, and then just look back and see which ones you like. Always look at your work afterwards and just try to decide what you like more.
All right. Thank you, Allie. I learned a few things too. I always enjoy watching and learning more about photography, even though I'm not shooting food specifically at this point in my life. But yeah, I hope all of you attending took some good notes. We are recording all of the sessions at Startup Week this year, so we will be posting them a couple of weeks from now, most likely. If there's something you want to review, or anything like that. And then also feel free to reach out to Alli if you want some professional assistance to get your images up to par. So thank you again for sharing all of that knowledge this morning and all those really tangible action items for folks. That'll wrap up our 10 a.m. Our 11 a.m. is funding your food and beverage startup. So we've got a conversation with Mud Sauce founder Charlinda Scales and her Fifth Third bankers. Fifth Third is one of our title sponsors this year, so we're super grateful to them for supporting Startup Week and excited to hear more about the work they're doing with small business owners, including some of our local food and beverage startups specifically. So grab a drink of water, and we hope we'll see you back at 11. Thank you again, Alli.
Sure thing. Thanks.